Welcome everyone, it's Evelyn from Twin Flames 3344. I'm very excited to present this read to you. It's very cool. So please stay tuned and follow all the way through to the end because it's some really cool information. Just a little bit of clearing. So again, this isn't just a read for the Divine Masculine, Divine Feminine for the union. There's a lot of things that come up to help you clear, as well as information about the journey. Also codes that will come through to prompt you in some way to bring up new codes for yourself. So here we go. It's April 26, 2020 today. The 26 is the Page of Wands. It's also an 8, which is strength within and without, also the manifestation of your dreams. And the day adds up to 34/7, which is the 8 of Wands, that fast-paced communication back and forth, expression of your feelings, the arrows of love, and the Page of Wands. So it's literally like a young man professing their heart to someone. That's the energy, but it's very passionate. All Wands energy again. And again, the 34 is a 7, which is the number of spirituality, the calm before the storm, the very calm, going within type of energy, whether it's spirituality or just deep in thought. So those are the energies of today. The Page of Wands and the 8 of Wands. Let's see here. It's a rainy day here, so it's a little bit glum outside. But remember, it's all in your perspective. All in the perspective. And I wrote that at the top of the page. So what I was referring to is on a scale from 1 to 10, ask yourself today, what was your perspective when you woke up today? What is your perspective now? Is it really positive? Is it really negative? Is it average? And what is it that you think caused that perspective today? So that might be something that could be helpful. So I finished this union read at 10:50. So 50 to 51, I was still putting the cards out. 10 is the Wheel of Fortune, 50 is the 10 of Cups. So emotional fulfillment, happy ending, happy fulfillment of family as well. And that going to the 51, which is the King of Swords. And the King of Swords is actually in the read as well today here at the top. So for those of you who aren't familiar with my read, and remember this is a general read for the Divine Masculine, Divine Feminine, Twin Flames. This is a union read. It is a general read, so if it doesn't resonate with you, don't force it to fit. But there's a lot of information other than the union that comes up in my reads. So it's going to be very interesting either way today. The underlying energy is over here, and then usually the outcome card I put over here in the corner, but I put them up here so you could see them. So the underlying energy is the Empress, or it's called the Abundance card in the SIRIAN Starseed deck. And then the summary card is the Divine Masculine in the Batcave. Warm and cozy, that's the 4 of crystals in this deck. Or 4 of pentacles, like you would normally see. So I have the feminine energy, 3 cards coming in. The masculine energy, 3 cards going out. We have the 3D on the bottom line, 4D and 5D on top. And then the feminine is the left, the masculine is the right, and the bridge is the middle. The bridge between them. Okay? So the abundance card we start out with is the Empress as well. Coming into, so from the Empress to the 2 of Cups, which is the center of the read, we have the openness of the Empress to transmutation of the physical body. So I was getting a lot of clearing of literal physical wounds as opposed to the etheric body, the physical body. So clearing injuries to connect with the 2 of Cups, one-on-one, face-to-face perhaps. The Divine Feminine open to all in the 2 of Cups connection. The Divine Masculine in the Batcave with his warm heart, but more isolated. The underlying Divine Feminine energy coming into this is the 6 of Cups here, the transition, which is the Death card, but it's literally going through a portal, as you can see the light there. And then the 8 of Wands, or Flames. So the loving inner children, also the lovers of the unity consciousness, the Christ consciousness, and the transition. I was getting also the lovers of Christ consciousness and the June swoon. And June and July have been coming up big time. So loving inner children, transit through this portal, and mercy ship was coming up here of communication and travel, expressing feelings back and forth and through energetic exchange in the August rush, Mercy Cruise, Major Tom and Penelope pit stop after June's silvery moon. So then I went to look up the eclipses, since June is a big thing coming up here, and I've been getting the 6 and the 7, as you guys know, being the June to July time span. And where I wrote Mercy Cruise, it was 11/11, okay? So I'll see also Mercy Cruises may be coming up, perhaps donations or charities, things like that. But I went to look up the eclipses, and the counter read on the website 40 days, 2 hours, 33 minutes, and 33 seconds. So really cool. So the penumbral lunar eclipse on June 5th to 6th, and then the full solar eclipse is on June 21st, and then July 4th, so our birthday, right? July 4th is the second penumbral lunar eclipse. So the first one on the 5th to the 6th of June, is called the strawberry full moon, and its peak is at 12:44 a.m., going from the 15th to the 16th, excuse me, the 5th to the 6th, but the dates add up to 15 and 16, which was interesting because the second lunar eclipse also, the dates add up to the 15 to the 16, or the devil or to the tower energy. But the moon and the new moon energy of the solar eclipse was adding up to 30 to 31, which is the union energy to the expansion energy. So magnitudes of the moons were coming up under the full moons. And then I was also, when I was looking up them, the Louisiana, the heading was literally Louisiana Iris full eclipse. And that's just, it's from a florist, Dave's Garden. But just the fact that iris came up twice, which is 2 eyes, right? 2020, this 2020 hindsight, which this read very much goes into as the lesson here. So this is a lesson, children. Pay attention. Louisiana Iris, the full eclipse, and Dave's Garden. And late mid-season was coming up for growth. So that may be a time period that's important here. And then I wanted to quote you the definition of penumbral, because that was significant as well, right? Penumbral just references that some light does get through, as opposed to the umbral, which is the full shadow. And then the sun, of course, is the full illumination. So from legal-dictionary.freedictionary.com, the definition of penumbral, and first is the legal and then the original definition, so listen closely. The rights guaranteed by implication in a constitution or the implied powers of a rule. So the rights guaranteed by implication that are implied in a constitution or something like a constitution. And the penumbrals where some light gets through no matter how much darkness there is. So the original definition comes up as a space of partial illumination between the perfect shadow, and notice it describes it as perfect, the perfect shadow, on all sides, and the full light. And that original definition was from Merriam-Webster Collegiate Dictionary, 1996, the 10th edition there, which the legal definition quoted that original source. And the umbre being the full shadow, and again the sun, the full illumination. In medicine, from enwikipedia.org, was the penumbra is the area surrounding the ischemic event, like a stroke, okay? So wherever the clot lands is the event space, but, it affects all the surrounding areas as well. So the periphery effect, the ripple effect, the innocent bystanders. So at 11:44, I was getting the May 7th full moon, which is the flower full moon. And the flower's been referenced a lot this week as far as the lotus or the rose or just the petals opening, even in my picture that I showed you, because it's all flowers, and the flower of life. That full moon is at 6:45 a.m. on the East Coast, May 7th. So that's the next one coming up. And so the flower unfolds. Oh, I was just referencing one of my songs. So some of my lyrics of Christus Sophia came up again to be used today, but this is another song that I wrote There's something I wrote a poem for my dad's funeral, and I, after the funeral, wrote it into a song. And that's some of the lyrics from that, about the flowers unfold. It's the beauty of the flowers unfold is actually the actual line from my song. But the flower unfolds, splatter, ripple, innocent bystanders affected, the color wheel splatter. So you know the color wheel that we used to make art from, where you do the color splatter? It's exactly that energy that's coming up here. Just like also revving the engine, which I've used before, the ischemic attack, the sudden event, also affects those around the event. And a sudden death was coming up, and sudden death was coming up for something else I was doing this week as well. Like the ischemic event, death of a vessel, an avenue, and then shortcuts all of a sudden are apparent that were not there before. So just like in the human body, when one vessel is eliminated, the body naturally finds a way around that. So just as we have this event now worldwide, because there's an event to one spot, there are now new side-to-side or adjacent doors opened because of that event, new opportunities. When something is squashed down, it must go out the sides, right? It goes the side route. Like in a fire drill, lateral moves must happen before you go up or down. Toggling the masculine to feminine is also here considered side to side, feminine to masculine, masculine to feminine, as opposed to up and down from 3D to 5D and 5D to 3D. So open to the middleman, the 4D bridge, the elevator versus the stairwell shaft, that stairs are well grounded but slower. So trying to explain to you why this has to happen slow, because sometimes if you take the elevator in a fire, you might get burned, or the elevator may break and you'll drop to your death, right? Whereas if you take the steps, it's much more safe. The stairs are very well grounded. They have a very good foundation. So opposed to, it's saying when we have a sudden event, then it's more important to go side to side from masculine to feminine, back and forth, do that dance, than the 3D to 5D. So it's saying you don't need as much meditation in that event. It's more important to go back and forth from your masculine to feminine. So very interesting. At 1202, which is the hangman and the high priestess, you are able to use your psychic abilities as you are going between your masculine and feminine. You've learned enough that you shouldn't have to toggle up every time to get guidance, right? Because you already have grounded your psychic abilities into your 3D body, okay? All right, so 1203, and a lot of stuff about medical, physical body stuff was coming up. So here you just had a stroke or a heart attack coming up, because that's an ischemic event. And then also online, as I was looking things up, leaky gut kept coming up. Different doctors are out there with their advertisements about how to fix the flora in your stomach and keep the bacteria balance correct, because there's good and bad bacteria in your stomach, and why so many people have leaky gut and the war within your stomach that's going on because of pesticides and all the artificial stuff that's used when you think you're eating healthy vegetables when you're not, because you're taking all the pesticides. So how important it is to really use organic vegetables. So that stuff was coming up. And then at 1203, which is the hangman and the 3, which is the empress again, which is also representative of Gaia, the earth. The 3D here was coming up as the starseed, the guidance, and the 3 of flames on the masculine side. So the divine feminine with a big upgrade and download this season, right, that we've just gone through with this new moon and the solstice, to flower, lotus, or crown. The divine masculine opens his heart to the present with focus on one flame, the I am presence. Bridged by guides, Buddha and Sphinx, the East and West Indies were both coming up here. So the East Indies being everything between basically China and Australia, all the islands there. And then also between the North America, US, and South America, the islands there are the West Indies. However, it's interesting, there was a parallel here because Cuba isn't usually considered part of the West Indies because it's, you know, it's a big place or country unto itself. And then the same thing with Japan, right? It's really considered separate, but yet it's separate, but amidst it. So it's like being of this world, but not of it. There's a parallel between Cuba and Japan in reference to the East and West Indies here, and the desert being apparent. Okay. So, also then, as I was going online, an advertisement or a news headline came up about the new North Korea leader, Kim Yo-jong, which is the sister of the brother who died. And for me, I was getting a parallel because remember when Mao Zedong came up in my meditation, my first thought was not so much a wound from China, which I'm sure that I have, but the connection to Mao Zedong and the, you know, the triple world power having to do with the dark energies. So of course China and well, multiple countries have always been, there's different three world powers, right? So you're going to look at the communist end, and then the world powers, including the U.S. So there was a connection coming up between Mao Zedong and Kim Yo-jong, which is, she's a female leader, right? And so it's interesting to see how North Korea is going to be tied to China, or how Kim Yo-jong may replicate Mao Zedong's leadership in some way, which, you know, isn't a positive thing. So if any of you know anything, I'm very apolitical, and I was terrible in history when I was in school. So if any of you know of any affiliation between them, other than the countries, obviously, of North Korea and China, there's definitely a tie coming up for that. Okay, so health, and then that's like the negative news to balance out the health news, which is positive. So Mao Zedong, who's also referenced as Mao Zedong, which also can be referenced as his father, and this was from China Watch Canada blogspot.com. So this is a little sensitive information, so this is not of my opinion. This is just a site that I was guided to bring up to you guys. So there's definitely political stuff going on within this statement. It's from China Watch Canada blogspot.com, and it just came up. It came up as a locked site, so it's very interesting. From March 25th, 18, this is from, and that was a Sunday as well. So this blogspot was saying, and most of it's word for word, but there's some paraphrasing, just so you're aware. So Mao Zedong, or Mao Zedong, part of the Illuminati, its triad of evil, they quoted, very likely a skull and bones man, which they reference as the Illuminati in the US. So 1903, Yale Divinity School set up a program of schools and hospitals in China, per this article, and Mao Zedong was on the staff there. In the 30s and 40s, American intel called upon their quote-unquote Yale in China and George Bush's cousin and fellow bonesman, quote-unquote, Reuben Holden. Three world powers, China, US, and Israel, was coming up. So Rothschild, it was R-O-T-H-S, child, dynasty is legendary in all three nations, founded in the 18th century by Patriarch Mayer Amschel Bauer in Germany, and that's B-A-U-E-R, in Germany, and changed his name from Bauer to Rothschild, which means red shield. West media, so the Western media, initially owned and controlled by what they're saying in this article were the Jewish billionaires tied to Rothschild Trust have covered up the Khazar European and Russian Jews who invaded Palestine in 1948 and massacred many of the resident Palestinians there and stole their land, business, homes, and farms. Mayo schooled by the Skull and Bones men and initiated into the International Masonic Lodge by socialist Jews from the U.S. done with the tacit permission of President FDR, a 32nd degree Mason, and then later Truman, who's a 33rd degree Mason, Mayo, a closely controlled puppet of the Jewish revolutionary, the Jewish revolutionary men like Israel Epstein and Sidney Shapiro, who lived in China and had reign of power over two key areas in Beijing's communist government: the treasury, which is the money, and the media, which is the propaganda. So this is all stated by this article. This is not my opinions, okay? So interestingly, Zionist Jews hold sway over these same two essential instruments of government today in the U.S. Jewish spies give U.S. military secrets to Communist China. The covert Jewish control of Mao and Chinese Communist Party, or the CCP, explains why Jonathan Pollard, found guilty of stealing thousands of classified documents from the Defense Department where he worked, and gave it to Israeli Mossad operating in the U.S. And then Israel in turn, so the information would be passed to Israel, and then Israel would send it to Red China, the dictators in Beijing. Pollard, born in Galveston, Texas, is in federal prison today. And then they're referencing also about Netanyahu had visited Pollard in Texas in prison to assure him the Israeli government was working behind the scenes along with Obama's White House to pardon him. He's considered a national hero in Israel for stealing the U.S. secrets. And they were also quoting that Obama was considered their puppet, and Rahm Emanuel, David Axelrod, and Ben Bernanke, and I think it's Tim Geithner, with Zionist Fanatic Association in Congress, working nonstop to transfer U.S. wealth to Israel and Red China. And they quoted it as creative destruction. So, not sure why that article came up, but if any of you have comments about that, please do so. So then I was getting the reference of Cuba. That's not actually considered West Indies, right? Because it's so big compared to the other islands there. And same thing with Japan as opposed to the East Indies. So it's like being of the world and yet not of the world at the same time, being the observer. So that was kind of interesting. But also Cuba reflects, I don't know if any of you noticed this, but Cuba reflects Bermuda, the shape. Bermuda's much smaller, but it does reflect the shape exactly. And that comes up around the Bermuda Triangle as well, because they're between, the Bermuda Triangle is between Bermuda and Cuba. So Tibet in relationship to China was also coming up then, as Egypt is to Israel. And then I was getting the Washington Monument as to the U.S. in that same reference. So as Cuba is to the West Indies and Japan to the East Indies, Tibet to China, Egypt to Israel, and then the Washington Monument to the U.S. And when I looked up Washington Monument, it's quoted as the freestanding masonry, which was so funny. That's the word that was used. What's so cool about the Washington Monument is there's no cement holding the bricks together. So in other words, in my perspective, it was each piece is free to be there and leave as it wants to. So that's what it's saying. It's not bonded together by cement. It's bonded together by the freedom to be there, that each person is free to be there, like, having to do with our freedom in the U.S. and Spirit's connecting with me. And that was built in 1848. It's 555 feet, so 555, of marble obelisk towers, 900 Ohio Drive, Southwest, Washington, D.C., and the zip code there is 224. All right, so we have the 24 of the end of karma, right? It's the omega, the last letter of the Greek alphabet. And then the 2, backed up by a lot of source, which is the high priestess or psychic abilities. And that zip code also adds up to the number 8, which is the dance between the masculine and the feminine. So, of course, Washington, D.C. came up because that's where the Washington Monument is, as District of Columbia. And of course the Washington Monument being for Washington, the first president. And then Colombia was coming up because District of Columbia was coming up, which is between Venezuela and Peru in Northwest South America, right? And it's funny because the Colombia dance is considered a style of Cuban rumba, which came up totally separate from my initial reference to Cuba. And just how common Colombia is, right? In prominence. Columbia University, Columbia Pictures, right? So Rushmore then was coming up, and August Rush came up earlier in the read. So that was significant. So Mount Rushmore was also being referenced. Mount Rushmore's in South Dakota. It was done by Gutzur Borglum. I'm sorry, my pen was running out there. Gutzum Borglum. And it's funny because his first name is Gut Zum. So we're talking about leaky gut. So that was coming up. And this is from wisegeek.com. And then his last name is Borglum. Boring and glum. It was a very glum day today. So it's pretty funny. And then with Mount Rushmore, of course, comes up Stone Mountain. And actually Stone Mountain in Georgia was done before Mount Rushmore. Both done by the same person. Rushmore is made of very soft granite, so he was excited to work with that. And Washington was completed first in Mount Rushmore in 1930, but all of it was done between 1930 and 41 when he died, so he wasn't able to add any other presidents. The address of Mount Rushmore is 13,000 Highway 244, so there's another reference to a lot of 2s and 4s because the zip code of the Washington Monument was 224. 3,000 Highway 244, Keystone, or Keystone, so remember that, South Dakota. And the zip code's 57751 for those of you who may be interested. And also his son helped him do the design on Mount Rushmore. So his son's name was Lincoln. Okay, and they put Lincoln up there too. So there's another reference there. So Stone Mountain and Keystone was the address for Mount Rushmore, but Stone Mountain was 3 Confederates, Jefferson Davis, Robert E. Lee, and Stonewall Jackson, so there's another reference to Stone, and Stonewalling with Stonewall Jackson, okay? So Mount Rushmore is then another connection to Stone Mountain, just like the Statue of Liberty in the U.S. in Paris. And the address of Stone Mountain is 1000 Robert E. Lee Boulevard, Stone Mountain in Georgia, and that's 387 as the zip code. So again, that stuff was from wisegeek.com. So the 4D here is the Page of Swords, the 2 of Cups, and Ascension, okay? So we have the Page of Swords, the 2 of Cups, and the Ascension card, which is like the world. The Divine Feminine with discovery from the pits of hell brought forth the light. The Divine Masculine ascending with the world in his right hand, held by Middle Easterner, which can reference Israel and Egypt as well. Bridged by the 2 of Cups, bond and connection, face to face, one holds the light and the other the world. Above and below, illuminator and transmuter, the bond that deepens them. In 5D, which is alchemy, the King of Swords, and then the 5 of Pentacles, which in this deck looks very much like, she's like the hermit there inside a cave, and there's this dark group down below. So there's no light in the cave, just the reflection off the ice that makes things whiter. But it's like the hermit without light being in a cave above these 3 that are below down here in the dark where you see the dark. So in the 5D here, the Divine Feminine, patient to fuse, and notice the difference between fuse and bond, because bond is just 2 sticking together, and the fuse actually weave into each other, right? So the Divine Feminine, patient to fuse or weave together, as opposed to bond and just stuck. The 3D bond to the 5D fuse that goes off. Interwoven, oneness, unbreakable. So fusing is an unbreakable bond. The bond is 2 parts, right, that are just stuck together. The Divine Masculine in the Mary Magdalene cave, dark and cold, to truly not use his eyes, like pretending to be blind, putting a blindfold on trying to get around your house to awaken your senses. The Divine Masculine in the Mary Magdalene cave, dark and cold, to truly not use his eyes and do what he is told from his guides, as opposed to those outside himself. The 5D bridge via the King of Swords, the moral man of honor, the human of honor. The T in Tao and Confucianism, they have TI is the source and TE is the moral man, the high moral man. The mastery of thought. Fusion versus isolation apart from the group. The TE is the part source, part human, alchemical fusion of the hermit and the God man, or that very high moral man. The wise human, the moral ascended human. Now, human came up as separate, right? Because we're always talking about man when we talk about man or human. But that was interesting because man is 415, which is 41/5, which is the Ace of Cups. And the reflection of that is 514, which actually came up in my reads that I stated the other day. 514 is the opposite of that. It's 14/5, or the Temperance card. And the human part of it, the HU, HU is 83, which is the reflection of 38, which is the Queen of Cups, the feminine energy. The HU is the feminine energy, and the man is the moral man. It's the 41 of the self-love and the 14 of the patient angels. Okay? In the male energy, self-love and patience, and the feminine energy is that loving, nurturing, intuitive side, the Queen of Cups. Okay, and then the man also, it reflects to 415 and then 514, but also then is the 41, which is a 5, and the 14, which is a 5, but they also then can be seen as 10 and 1, since 415 adds up to 10. So then you have the 10 reflecting the 1, which is the Wheel of Fortune, and the Magician. Okay, and all of this having to do with the word human. Divine feminine love, and then the higher moral man of self-love and angelic patience. So we turn the page, it's 159, that's the Magician, and the 59 of the 5 of Swords, which is the War Within. And the Page of Wands came up today, right? And so that's 26, and then also the 26 of the alphabet was coming up. We have 26 letters in our alphabet, whereas the Greek alphabet's 24. So the Divine Feminine here, going on in the vertical way, just about the feminine, there's a fresh start with new information to alchemize, bringing together and merging together in order to make sense. And senses are referenced here, to make sense of something, new information. A leap to open more fully to the underground world and alchemize the two, the light and the dark. The Divine Masculine is present and open to flames and red source. Lower chakra system deprived of blue, or the blue rays, in order to come in for the purples, greens, and blues up top. But also don't forget the pinks and whites can't be illuminated without it, because the pinks and whites only come from all of the colors being present at the top. So completing the spectrum, the blue rays, 4 to 7, right? The 4th to the 7th chakras. From the heart to the crown, you need the blues. But 4 to 7, I always reference, is that sweet spot, the range that we need to be in, whether it's the human body or 0 point, it's the best spot to be in. So when we're talking about the sweet spot just to the higher, right, a little bit lighter or more neutral of the middle point being 5 of 1 to 9. So 4 to 7 is the sweet spot. The heart being the 4 out of the 7 chakra system, and the heart is the 7 in the 12 chakra system as far as the downloads I'm getting. Acid versus alkaline pH. Acid chemical below 7 pH, and alkaline is a chemical that's 7 or greater. Acid is H plus or H positive ion, and alkaline is OH negative ions. So when you put a positive H and a negative H together, it doesn't really cancel each other out, because energy doesn't disappear. It just becomes one H, but they're fused together as 2 H's, which then becomes OH of the alkaline of H2O, or water. So the pH, and again, this is just the downloads of information and the parallels that I'm bringing to you. It doesn't have to be scientifically perfect in the way the textbooks would tell you. So pH is potential hydrogen. So what's the importance of hydrogen? Well, that's water, right? The ability to attract hydrogen has to do with energy production. And water is 2/3 hydrogen, and the ideal body pH is 7.4, which is the reflection of the 4 to 7 that I just quoted you. And just FYI, acid is sour and alkaline is bitter. And of course, this stuff is just coming from EN Wiki. Okay, so acid is sour, or most of the foods that you love, because it has more taste, and alkaline's more bitter. And also, Mary means bitter. Okay, so the bridge here, or the middle column here, in the middle, the Washington Monument. The guides, or Christ Buddha, and Akashic Records, Crystal Sphinx, in the 3D bridge to bond in 4D and fuse in the 5D in mastering thoughts, the higher mind of the heart. To higher self, connection is the mind. The heart is the feelings, and higher self, transcendence. Like 3D and 5D, the mind is the 4D rainbow bridge from dark to light. The space between the heart and the I am, you fill in the blank. Your mind, your story, your hell, your glory. To choose pain or fear, or to choose love and bliss. Freedom from pain, and all addictions, and addictions to pain and fear. That's what addictions are. Addiction to love is the fear of not getting love or losing love. For love is always present. It's always an all-encompassingly present or omnipresent. Love is, it just is, the energy of life itself. Source, God, whatever your perception or perspective is. It's all the same, all parts to the same puzzle. No face, no name. In the silence, and then I was guided, this is some more lyrics from my Christ O Sophia song, which I haven't published yet, but they wanted me to bring up these lyrics. So no face, no name was actually part of my lyrics. In the silence she was, in the darkness she loved. No light, no sound, and no one around, yet she was. Then he came, quantum, no name, no face, no fortune, no fame, but he loved. She manifested her dreams, her yearning for more beauty, more green, more unseen, and something called from above. Her longing and his embers burn, her truth he was to but learn, her knowing agony, their glowing destiny, the rest for them to discern. All right, so back to the read. The Empress in her abundance opens her heart, the 2 of Cups to 0 point, to the monkey or the monk key, right? The monk is the hermit, the monk key in the middle, the hermit in the bat cave with crystals and a warm heart, the 4 of Pentacles. And then 3, 2, 1, the numbers there were coming up because 3, 2, 1 is the energy loop, right? Because we just don't go in circles. We go back and then up. We create momentum, that vacuum, which propels us forward. 3 down to 2 and then up to 4. And I literally drew that, and guess what that becomes? Well, that energy loop is the letter G, referencing God. So the energy loop was coming up and referencing the G letter, back and then up from 0 point, with the entry point always left open. So literally they're talking about the letter G. It's showing you the energy loop with the entry point always left open, up and then down 2 and then up 3 and so on, right? You go back 1 and then up a couple more, okay? So because of the time just was 2, 3, 1 after that. So it's going, not only going 3 down to 2 and then up to 4, but then as you go from 2 up to 3, back down to 1 sometimes down 2 and up 3 and so on. Anyway, it wasn't important how many steps down and up, just the fact that it goes down and up. It never keeps going up without creating the momentum back first in order to propel you forward. So at 233 is the High Priestess and the 33 of the Christ vibration, also the 7 of Wands, standing up for yourself. The 6 of Cups, I also doing the reference from the 6 of Cups to the Sun, the transition card of the portal to the reflection of the hermit, and then the 8 of flames to the adept of orbs, the knight of swords. So the innocence, the lambs, transition to the light, the splatter wheel, like jumping through the sprinkler or dodging it without getting wet, timing it right, getting through the cyclone and into the vortex, the bridge of chaos and turbulence, where only the brave dare to go, into the sun, into full light and exposure, to transition within, holding light at the gate for the others to follow, the splatter, the writing on the wall, the Great Wall of China, Israel, and the south border of the U.S. of Americas. The U.S. being the cup of Sophia, or in other words, the Grail, and the America, Adam's apple. How she communicates, being blind, deaf, and dumb, is Adam's apple. 20 years of the divine feminine, never seen, but evergreen, which is another quote from my song. 20 years of the divine feminine, never seen, but evergreen. So no matter how much the feminine in the past was never seen and not counted, in her heart she holds faith still and bears child for those willing to speak from their Adam's apple and dates. 20 vision corrections. In hindsight is wisdom. Turn around, what's behind you, nothing you can do, a total eclipse of the heart. 5D message sent from Plymouth Rock, the symbol by Elder Thomas Faunce in 1741, which was actually 121 years later than they actually landed on Plymouth Rock in 1620. But this was the symbol of both the virtues, quote unquote, from en.m.wikipedia.org, the symbol of both the virtues and the flaws of the first English people who colonized New England. The rock actually broke in transport when they tried to bring it into Center City, right, to the main town in 1774, so before the birthday at 1776. So it broke in transport to the city, but was rejoined in 1880 back to the original site at Plymouth Harbor. So now the rock's back together again at the harbor. So that was the read for you. I do want to pull from the energy deck to see what's coming up for this. And please comment below if you have anything to add or contrast to the information. Again, all the information that comes up is information I'm guided to. It is not my opinion or my perspective. I am the messenger of the information to you. Okay. And I love that how the Empress in this deck and the Four of Pentacles, the Divine Masculine in the Batcave, come in so beautifully today. It's about her opening her heart and the masculine being in his heart, which are both really positives. And also the coolness of the feminine and the hotness of the masculine energy. All right, so what is it we need to take away from all of this? Take a deep breath, you guys. Well, a couple cards came out together. The bottom of the deck is Angel of Love 49, which is the 9 of Cups, the Get Your Wish card, to be in your heart. And this is very much referencing the lamb. It's very sweet. Get your wish. The lamb. I was just getting a reference to, shoot, what's that movie called? Silence of the Lambs. I was getting a reference of him with his mouthpiece on, right? Because the lamb is like the opposite of the lamb, and he's, you know, the lambs. It was referencing the lamb. So the cards that came out for you guys here is that's actually 11. Sometimes it looks like 2. So however you take it, it should be for you. But this is that cornucopia of abundance, just like the Empress, and Thanksgiving, giving thanks. Giving thanks for your present moment and being grateful for what's in your present moment and seeing the light shine through in every moment. You also have the journey. There's that rainbow bridge, literally. It's the rainbow of colors all across the bridge that we were discussing, that you need to bring that red, orange, and yellow into the blues of the higher chakra systems. And you notice she's holding a crystal right there, something. And then here's the directions, right? You get confused and stuck at the road at the root chakra where the browns are and the reds, right? But if you get to the blues, you'll have a much easier time of it, the journey. Then you have the door to spirit. right? Allowing that purity of light to come in through your crown, which is the opening of the flower, the unfold. My line of the song is, the beauty is the flowers unfold. The beauty's not in the asking. It's in the love that you hold. The beauty's not in the asking, it's in the love you hold. I'm trying to remember my lyrics, yeah. So there's, okay, it's about the beauty of your spirit, bringing in the purity of the higher self, the door to spirit, and that keeping that open. And then we have the 39, which is the Knight of Cups. By the way, we had so funny, look. We have the 11, and then I talked about that sometimes being a 2, and then the 2 came up, which is the bridge. And then we have the 32 of the journey, and this is the journey card. And then this is the journey here, and the door to spirit is the 39, which is being love. The Knight of Cups, the 5th chakra, Archangel Gabriel, which is the Adam's apple. Look how there's a spark there at his Adam's apple. It's from here where everything begins, because the masculine needs to speak up his truth. How cool is that? That's really cool, you guys. All right, so the cornucopia of the 11 and wisdom. 11 is justice, truth, and balance. And the abundance, so the truth and balance is the abundance that the earth is and gives to you. And actually corn, make sure you don't eat processed corn. Make sure it's organic, because corn is one of the really bad things that the pesticides get into. All right, so the 11 going to the 2, 11 being the justice of truth and wisdom, and the 2 being the higher self, because now connecting with your intuition, your feminine energy, your feminine self, on the journey across the 40 bridge to the door of spirit, allowing your higher self in the purity of the light in order to transmute all those negative energies as we go into the violet light that the masculine's bringing with all of his red up to the blues, becoming all violet of the 39 and being in the yellow very much of being confident and shining his light as the 39, the Knight of Cups, being love in the 5th chakra of his throat, which is now sparkling there, the Adam's apple, in order to come out of his mouth. That's a really beautiful message. I love that. And don't forget, the underlying energy is the feminine sweetness, the lamb, supporting. This is the being happy with herself. The 9 of Cups is all about self-satisfaction, being happy with herself and how perfect she is just the way she is in her sweetness, the angel of love, and getting her wish as she follows her own heart, and the masculine comes out of his, into his throat and out his mouth. The portals of love, the mouth and the creative portal, the uvula and the vulva. All right, as I always say. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. I certainly love it. And now it's 47, the minute's 47, and we're referencing the 4 to 7 and 7 to 4 all day. So right before it turned 4-8, that was perfect. Okay, do I want to pull you another card? That was pretty cool. I'm going to give you a Kipper card. I haven't been using that. I'll just do a Kipper and then I'll let it go. I love this read. All right. From the Kipper deck, what is it we need to know? Last information. All right, so we have expectations, and this is the 28, is the twin card. All right, so let go of outcomes. Okay, and just stay present in your current messages. Like, don't worry about what's down the road. Just stay present in your present moment and in your divine marriage. Your connection that is not bonded but fused together, especially in the 5D, and allow the expansion and changes that need to happen. Okay? As the spaces are emptied in order to be filled. Some things just need to end. Okay? And so the bottom of the deck is the mature woman. And that can reference Mother Nature, the Empress. All right? And the great fortune that she is. Okay? Of distant horizons. Came a long way, baby. How funny is that? All right? After dealing with the masculine energy, the thief energy that took away from the feminine all these years, we've come a long way of great fortune and abundance to the mature woman. So it's literally like Gaia maturing and all of the feminine energy upon her. At 6 is the lovers. All right, guys, I guess that's it. Rise and be love.